What obstacles do low-income students face in pursuit of a bachelor's degree? I will provide a brief introduction to the topic, including some reasons why it's important to me and my work. I will then identify the obstacles for low-income students that I found pop up again and again across the literature, grouped by which of the three stages they apply to. I'm going to identify these three stages in a future slide. I will include suggestions for improvement for each stage based on research and analysis. I will finally summarize and end the presentation by asking what the effects of change might look like. Low-income students do not go to and graduate from college at the same rate as students from high-income families. They're more apt to delay their education, take breaks between terms, and take courses as a part-time student. The citation I've included shows there's a large gap between these two types of students and their completion rate. This particular rate is measured at 26 years of age, which I find is helpful given that low-income students often take longer than 4 years to complete their bachelor's degree. Education is believed to be a tool for upward mobility. Denying access to education also denies people the chance to take control of their own lives. To intentionally exclude groups of society from education is an act of prejudice and an attempt at sabotage. Access to education for all is a popular topic. However, where low-income students are concerned, what you hear about mostly is tuition and financial aid. Some people in the field have begun talking about low income in different ways at conferences and inside organizations. The speakers have been mostly educators, social justice enthusiasts, and researchers. Hopefully we'll be hearing more about this topic in the news. The Obama administration has always had a strong focus on education, and he's been involved with many initiatives, more than I know about or can count in this presentation. But the basics are that he's increased funding for education, worked with educators and administrators as well as students to improve education in both big and small ways. Early in his first term, he challenged every American to attend at least 1 year of post-secondary education. Early in his second year, he challenged higher education to find a way to lower tuition to their institutions. President Obama is a key player in the field of creating access for all in terms of education. I'm not sure whether or not he looks at it from the perspective of tuition and financial aid, or if currently he's considering other factors. This topic is important for my work as I'm in a position of influence in terms of planning and operations for academic programs. One of our programs has a residency requirement where students travel to Boston for 1 week per year to attend class. This is an expensive trip for our students to finance once you add up transportation, lodging, and more in an expensive city. This also means students need to take a week off of work and possibly leave behind family and other responsibilities. As you might imagine, this traditional residency experience excludes many low-income students who don't have the luxury of leaving their home and their families and their jobs. Tinkering with this experience to see how it can be improved and more inclusive is important to myself and my colleagues. One idea we have is to create residencies at the 3 different campuses in the U.S. in Charlotte, Seattle, and Boston to lower travel costs and hopefully give people a chance to sleep at home and not have to pay for hotels. I don't want to downplay the effect that tuition costs have on low-income students and their decisions of whether or not to attend college or complete college. However, this is only one aspect of the graduation rates of low-income versus high-income students, and the financial aid and tuition come into play after someone wants to go to college, and often some of the issues is that this decision is made not to pursue higher education extremely early. Additionally, the research that exists already about access to education for low-income students focuses on tuition, which is why I'm interested in other barriers. Even within the one question of what obstacles do low-income students face when pursuing a bachelor's degree, there's a lot that could be covered. So I wanted to focus further and identify 3 different stages during the pursuit of higher education: getting in, getting to, and getting through. Getting in covers everything from birth to being accepted by a higher ed institution. Getting to covers what occurs between acceptance and moving into a freshman dormitory or beginning your first day of class. Getting through includes everything from the moment a student begins their undergraduate studies until they graduate with a bachelor's degree. There are some who fail to pursue higher education at all. Why do many low-income students fail to pursue higher education? One obstacle to getting into school is self-limitation. Many low-income students make the decision early on in their lives that higher education isn't for them, and this is based off of what they know about life at a very young age, at 7th grade, and they base this off of family and friends at school, teachers at school, etc. Another obstacle is lack of knowledge about college. College is talked about a lot in some houses and never mentioned in others. Once a student is interested in higher education, now they need to be accepted into a program. Studies show that more than likely a low-income student has come from a school that is underperforming, and their grades and scores will reflect this. Additionally, the student is not likely to have the extracurricular experience that high-income students do. I'm not sure what accounts for this, but it could be an assortment of not being able to afford the dues or funding associated with different activities, or not being able to spare the time after school due to work or family obligations. These things and more leave low-income students at a disadvantage as a college applicant. Possible suggestions: find a way to begin introduction to higher education early. Begin to calculate for low-income students what characteristics or accomplishments could be a measured replacement for traditional criteria so that they know that they have a chance. In the next stage, getting to. One famous obstacle is financial aid, but here we're looking at the process. Lower income students are sometimes intimidated when speaking to admissions and financial aid staff at the college they are applying to or attending. Not only is this process confusing, but it's also anxiety producing. As I saw in the research, a number of students are deterred from attending college in order to avoid these interactions. Another obstacle is lack of counseling or guidance when needed. One study refers to this as staying late and starting early, bridging the gap between high school and college, especially during that summer, which is referred to as summer melt. How to make all of this planning work, how to leave family, jobs, and more at home and travel to a university where you'll reside 9 out of 12 months of the year, how to understand housing information, and more. The findings show that summer counseling had a positive effect on the treatment group and enrolled at a higher rate than the control group. The recommendation for practice is a combination of high schools staying late and colleges leaving early in order to bridge this gap. Possible suggestions: low-income students have little experience communicating with college staff and making plans on their own. So a suggestion is to provide counselors during that time, as the impact that a counselor has at this point specifically between acceptance and attendance is huge. In the last stage, getting through, a large roadblock is a sense of belonging. I had a personal experience with this as a low-income student myself. I felt very different than my classmates because they didn't work and had a different outlook on life. I eventually met the students that were more like me at work, other working students, and began to get a sense that I had found my place at UMass. Another hindrance is academic success in college. Because low income students are unprepared academically and culturally, this will make each step towards completion a true challenge. Low income students often require remedial classes, tutoring, and this often extends their time before graduating. And this is just one example of what could happen due to this academic and cultural unpreparedness. Another big hindrance for completing a bachelor's degree or getting through is interrupted movement. Low income students follow a different pathway through higher education given their different lifestyle and obligations. They may need to take courses on a part time basis, and most programs are built for full time students. They may also need to take time off between terms due to work or family obligations. This is difficult to work out in a program designed for students without these obligations. Possible suggestions, though I realize it's a tall order, is create self-selecting learner communities based on financial status. Improve the quality and standards of K through 12 education. That should be easy. Design colleges, programs, and courses for the low income student. There are many hindrances and roadblocks for low income students that make it difficult to obtain a bachelor's degree, but there is hope. Even though there's self-limitation, academic preparedness, financial aid, housing processes, there's also a lot of ways to counteract these, and I look forward to learning more about them and possibly implementing them myself one day. A real marker of change in my mind would be to redevelop the American higher education system with more than just the elite in mind. When the structure was first built in America, it was hundreds of years ago. So it doesn't surprise me that it might need not only a change here or there, but a rebuild from bottom up. And so that's what I'm hoping for low income students, that they get to go to schools and attend programs that were built for them.